The views and opinions expressed on the Cap are those of the hosts. They do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of OldMilk Media. Any opinions stated aren't intended to offend anyone. On this episode of the Cap Podcast, we react to Eternal Atake 2 by Lil Uzi Vert. Welcome back. This is episode 522 of your critical but accurate tour through hip hop, the Cap Podcast. We are your tour guides. I'm Nate Sperlin. That is Taylor McLeod. Thank you for tuning in on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever else you might be tuning in. Feel free to go ahead and join the conversation by leaving a comment, liking this video, and subscribing to the channel. Taylor, how are you doing today?
I got some new boots this week, so I'm doing great.
Okay. Hey, man.
Great.
Especially, well, here's the thing though. Like, at least in New York City, it's been 70 degrees for 3
Oh,
days out of the week. So
it's
are
been
you
the
even
same
going
up
to
here.
use the boots?
Oh, these aren't snow boots.
Oh, okay.
These are just boots.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. Gotcha. But hey, man, we need some boots. Everybody needs boots. Yeah, and I'm running on like 4 hours of sleep because I chose to play MLB The Show all night and win a World Series. So you guys are welcome to be in my presence. The parade is tomorrow. Anyway. On this episode of the Cat Podcast, we are reacting to Eternal Atake 2 by Lil Uzi Vert. The album is 16 tracks, 43 minutes long, with one feature, Big Time Rush. Taylor, what are your initial thoughts on Eternal Atake 2?
Um, well, obviously me and you, what's crazy is like Lil Uzi Vert is probably part of the reason that me and you do this show,
Mhm.
and probably part of the reason because we've been friends for a long time, but I remember when what albums were coming out? Was it Eternal Take?
It
And
was Eternal Atake. You're talking about 2020, right?
yeah, when COVID
Yeah,
was about to
it was
happen,
Eternal
because
Atake.
I remember you and I were both really excited about that. So obviously it's not the direct follow-up to it, but in terms of the name, it's the follow-up to it. So I think the my first thing was that I feel like no artists get like the rollout period correct anymore.
Mhm.
It's either like, hey, album in a week, or it's like, hey, album in 2 years, and then you wait for it and you get it, and it's not as so it's like I feel like no one really can like hit that sweet spot. And well, not no one, but in terms of like our premier artists, that sweet spot really doesn't exist anymore. I think in terms of 2024, I think Future and Metro did it best, where they were
Yeah,
like, we have two albums coming, here are the dates, and they're gonna come out on those dates so we can be ready for it. It's not like because I feel like this rollout was what there wasn't even really a rollout. It was just like album next week.
yeah.
So I feel like my in terms of like my expectations coming into it, I didn't really know what to expect. Pink Tape, obviously you and I talked about it last year. There's some moments on there that I enjoy, but overall it wasn't my favorite project in general or Uzi project at all. Um, and we'll get to this later on, but through the beginning of this, man, I was like, oh God, this is not good. Right?
Yeah,
Like I like the intro a lot. I do like the intro a lot. And I was like, okay, all right, Uzi's just rapping here. And then you start to get like the like super deep like Playboy Cardi voice thing going on. You get a Big Time Rush skit, which I was like, I mean, shout out to Big Time Rush, but I was like, I don't know what you guys are doing here. And some stuff like that. And I was like, all right, this isn't really going to be for me. Like having us like the whole like track 7 called She Stank. I was like, all right, man, like me and Nate are going to talk for like 10 minutes about this and then wrap it up. But, and we'll get to this later, this because this is my first reaction. Lil Uzi Vertical pulled a rabbit out of his hat in the second half. He did.
yeah. Pig tape, I said it when we did it, when we did the episode on it last year. I'm gonna say it again in terms of Lil Uzi's discography, which I believe from Love Is Rage to Eternal Take, well, excuse I should say to Lil Uzi Vert versus the World 2 is flawless. When you take that flawless discography and compare it to Pink Tape is garbage. That doesn't mean that Pink Tape in a vacuum is garbage. It means compared to the super high expectations I have for Lil Uzi, it's garbage. Um, because of that, first of all, I think it was garbage because after Take, we heard some rumors of other artists trying to get around Lil Uzi because Lil Uzi had the sauce. I don't understand how we get from Lil Uzi controlling the sound, controlling the wave, to Lil Uzi chasing Playboy Cardi sound in a matter of it really was 3 years, but at the same time, like there's no in between for where Lil Uzi lost the sauce. In terms of like, oh, this album is bad, he doesn't have it anymore. It's just like a random choice of, okay, I'm just not gonna do what I'm great at anymore, which was kind of confusing to me. So because of that, and because of this being Eternal Would Take Two, I expected Lil Uzi to reestablish his signature sound, um, reestablish the experimental beats that nobody else would touch, the flows that show him to be like one of the greatest, what I believed at the time, in terms of the run that I said, Love Is Rage to Lil Uzi Vert versus the World 2, to be one of the greatest rappers alive. I also expected him to, with this being the sequel to Eternal Atake, continue on along the same concepts where you have that versatility on Eternal Take, where like Lil Uzi saying that the first six songs are going to be like this, the next six songs are going to be like this, and then the final six songs are going to be like this. So like that attention to detail that was so present on Eternal Take, I'm also expecting. I love the skits on Eternal Take. Also, just him like going from being in the alien spaceship to getting out the alien spaceship and then realizing like, yo, I gotta drop this album. Like those skits in between really added a nice texture to the album. And then you have Love Is Rage, excuse me, Lil Uzi Vert versus the World 2, where you have all the songs that some of them leaked, some of them were never heard before, but these are all songs that people wanted to hear. That's what I expected. I did not get that. Um, the packaging, I enjoyed. I think that this rollout is interesting for me because I remember Lil Uzi Vert teasing Love Is Rage 2 and teasing that for 2 years, and then it finally comes out and then it's great. I remember Lil Uzi then teasing Eternal Take, I believe, for 4 years, and then with multiple times saying it's gonna drop soon, it's gonna drop soon, and then we're waiting 4 years and then it comes out and then it's great. So when I first saw that Lil Uzi was planning to release an album, honestly, I didn't take it seriously because he's done this, like I just said, he's done this before where he said, I'm gonna release an album soon and it doesn't come out for years. I didn't take it seriously until I saw the trailer, which was a nice trailer, by the way. And then him changing all the other album covers from his previous albums to reflect something like the Eternal Take Two theme or the Eternal Take theme. I thought that was really nice in terms of packaging of a rollout. I like the album cover also. Um, but yeah, so I also the thing about the trailer that I thought was interesting was it said something along the lines of in 2020 Lil Uzi ascended and now he's coming back. That tells me that we're ignoring the pink tape, or at least that's what that communicates to me. So if we're ignoring the pink tape and we're making a sequel for an album that is 4 years old, I'm expecting it to be like similar concepts. Again, that's not what we got. This album sounds like Lil Uzi Vert heard his voice, heard the deepness in his voice after some Galaxy Gas, and decided to make an album with it. At least the first half sounds like that. I like the intro, like Taylor said. I also like the intro, but besides that, from the second track to Mr. Chow, get rid of that. I don't want it
Yeah,
at
I
all.
feel the same way.
Um, Mainly because it doesn't seem like he's putting much effort into his hooks. His like he's really good at making hooks. So for him to come with a song and the hook just be, I don't think that they're ready, and saying that like 20 times, like that's underwhelming to me. Um, I also noticed there's a lot of drug talk on this album, which is weird, well concerning, because on the Pink Tape he had a song about going to rehab. Um, so yeah, that's pretty concerning. I feel like the beats, at least on the first half, are one dimensional. And I also don't think there's really much for the listener to relate to. Um, I can see that first half of the album being for concerts, for events, for shows. And honestly, in that atmosphere, it might get the job done. But in terms of me sitting down and having it in my earbuds or my headphones and having a pleasant listen to it, um, that doesn't get the job done for me. Um, I also think towards the end we have tracks where Lil Uzi, oh, that's the other thing too. There's no melody in the first half, like at all.
No,
Like there's
none.
barely any melody. And the versatility that I'm expecting from Lil Uzi, I'm expecting great catchy bars and phenomenal melody. And we didn't get great catchy bars, and we definitely didn't get phenomenal melody in the first half. The second half, we get more of that melody, and even then, I would argue it's still not up to par with Lil Uzi's peak.
Yeah.
Um, I also think that the production in the first half of it is pretty one-dimensional. Um, the songs in the second half where the production's slower, it gives Lil Uzi more time to breathe between lines. It gives him time for that melody to stretch out. I thought those were much better attempts at music for Lil Uzi. Um, yeah, and ultimately, no skits being on this one is disappointing, like I said, because the skits on an Eternal Take help build the atmosphere for Eternal Take. I didn't really get much of that here besides like a few tags on the first two songs, which isn't enough for me. And it pains me to say it, but it seems like the days of Lil Uzi being able to to create a complete album with no skips that showcases his versatility all around, it seems like those days are over.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple thoughts here. I think those days are over for a lot of people, unfortunately. Like you and I, me, you, and a couple other people talked about this yesterday. Like, I mean, I think that can be said for Drake right now, right? Where it's like, it's almost like a lot of these artists who have this like legacy almost can't. This sounds kind of harsh, but like can't stay focused long enough to like put an entire project together. And it's like then it doesn't need to be 16 songs, right? If we just want to make a 12 track album with 12 good songs, right? And like if I think the maybe focus isn't the right word, but it's just like not, and you and I used to talk about this a lot. It's not
Hmm.
intentional enough, right? It's not intentional enough. And that's why like an album like, Mr. Morale from Kendrick, right? Like even though it got so many mixed reviews, right? Like there's never a doubt in my mind that every detail of that album was placed on purpose,
Hmm.
right? Like there's never a doubt in my mind that like even if it doesn't sound great to me or to anyone else or to who, you know what I mean, however you feel about it, like there's never a doubt to me that like it's on purpose. Like everything
Hmm.
that happened on that piece of work happened on purpose and it wasn't just like oh yeah, that's okay, just put that there, put that here. Something you said earlier, like I think the thing that makes Lil Uzi and made him stand out from the beginning is that he does something that no one else can do, right? Like no one else can make Lil Uzi music.
Hmm.
He's definitely influenced things, but but people have tried to like do kind of the like similar sound or whatever. But like, what makes him and like I think about Future and Young Thug and people who do have a lot of imitators, it's like what makes them them is no one can actually do it like they do
Hmm.
it. And I think on the first half of this, you have a lot of like you said, Uzi making music that other people could make, right? And that's not a good thing, right? And then I like when you get to the back half and it's like, all right, this is like Chill Bay is probably my favorite song on here, and
Hmm.
that's probably like the poppiest, most melodic song on here. But
Yeah.
like the thing that I've always loved about Uzi's music is like it puts you and because it's made this way, it's like that like dreamlike state, right? Where everything is like it's like everything is like glittery, but kind of like it's like the P's and Q's music video, right? It's like that
Yeah.
like world is what I think of when I'm like, all right, let me sit down and listen to Lil Uzi. Even songs like that, like EXO Tour Life, which is like has the morbid hook on it, you know what I mean? It's still like you still feel like you're in that like trance,
Hmm.
right? And the first half of this doesn't feel like that. Pink Tape didn't feel like that. I can really appreciate that there are songs throughout the back half here that do feel like that again. Even something like Lift 'Em Up, which is like kind of a more aggressive song. It's still like okay, but it's aggressive, but it's kind of like weirdo aggressive. Not in a
Hmm.
bad way either, but like that like okay yeah this is like Lil Uzi's version of aggression, right? It's not like all right, let me use the Playboy Cardi voice filter to put me down like 6 octaves, right? It's like no, he's like obviously he's being threatening on it, but it's also like or they're being threatening on it, but it's like Yeah, but it's Lil Uzi doing it in a way that makes sense for Lil Uzi to do it. And that's like the biggest complaint we always have about a million different artists is that they start doing things that everyone can do that doesn't fit them.
Hmm.
And, so like that's disappointing in the first half. I am super, super grateful, right? Because I know that like I have an investment in like artists that are obviously my favorites, but also people like around me, their favorites. I will like naturally be like, all right, let me see what they have going on. And especially with me and you doing the show, I know Uzi's like one of your favorites ever. So I'm like coming into this with very high expectations.
Hmm.
And I am glad that there are songs on here that are not like it's not like there's everything on here is a skip. Like I'm never gonna come back to any of this. To me, this feels like when your team gets down like big at halftime,
Hmm.
right? And then they come out like fire in the second half. And you might not win the game, right? But you're like, all right, like that's my team. Like I know though, you know what I mean? Like they're playing the way I know they can play. And that's how I feel here. Like even songs, and I don't know how you feel about this. For a long time I thought Uzi had very creative song names, right?
Yes.
And stuff that like it was like, ah, okay, I really like this. You know what I mean?
I
It's
have
like
no clue the reasoning behind naming Exo Tour Life and
that's
spelling it that way.
exactly like
Yeah.
Sanguine Paradise, right? Or
Hmm.
Pete, like you know what I mean? And like these things didn't really make sense. Even like Erase Your Social, right? Like
Hmm.
it's like that's more of like a thematic thing, but it's still like okay, I can like get down with this. Some of the song tracks, the listing here is like, man, like it's just not. It doesn't feel like Lil Uzi on some of these, right? It
Hmm.
doesn't. It doesn't like not an option, right? That doesn't feel to me like that's like a Lil Uzi, right? Like and so little stuff like that, it doesn't feel like it, but then you get like, like Chill Bay and even like what made me think about the song titles is like Perky Sex is obviously
Hmm.
like a tongue in cheek, I guess, like song title. But that song, it's like, yeah, that's definitely a Lil Uzi song, man. Like, you know what I mean? It's like it's definitely a Lil Uzi song. And then Conceited, whatever, and then Space High to me is the most Lil Uzi song here. At least what it's not the best song here, but
Hmm.
it's what makes me feel the most like okay, like that that the Lil Uzi Vert that like we all heard a decade ago and we're like, what is this? And then over the like 5 years after that, we're like, this is one of the biggest stars we have. It's like that artist is still there. It's just, as time goes on and things happen in not just Uzi's life, but everyone's life, like layers get built up on top of it and it's not so like raw and not so available.
Hmm.
So there is some disappointment in that because it's like you do have these expectations, and then to only get like what I would consider like 5 or 6 songs on here that I really enjoy is like it's
Yeah.
definitely disappointing.
Yeah. Um, I know on Chill Bay, I kind of felt like that had a weekend feel to that, which I really enjoyed. I also thought Perky Sex would have benefited from a future feature. And that's the thing too. Like I am of the belief, or once was of the belief, that Lil Uzi can make an album entirely by himself and like do the hooks, like do everything by himself. Well, not like the beat making, towards like vocal. I'm just talking about vocals, like
Yeah.
the rapping and the hooks and stuff like that, and it be like straight fire. Um, Here it kind of feels like there's some features that are needed. I don't understand the big time rush thing at all. Like if you want to make a song with the big time rush, you are Lil Uzi Vert. You are like you are one of the most versatile artists we've seen over the past decade. You are perfectly within your right to make a big time rush type song, especially when what is it, going back like maybe like 3, 4 years ago, maybe even 2 years ago. But like somewhere around along that range, you have songs like Demon High coming out, which don't really
Yeah.
sound like hip hop, but it sounds like Uzi getting ready to transcend hip hop and become like a mainstay in music in general. What happened to that, by the way? I was really excited for that era, but it never came.
Well,
And we
this
got this.
cover, the cover on this feels like it's from that music
Yeah,
video.
it
So
does. That's
it
true.
feels like some of the era stuff feels like things got like ripped apart and then like all of a sudden within like obviously I know it wasn't just a week's decision, but it feels like for us as fans and listeners, it feels like within a week it's like, oh yeah, this shit that we ripped apart a while ago, like just throw it back together.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, I agree with that, but like I don't know. You shouted out Lift Them Up. You shouted out Chobe. You shouted out Perky Sex. Let me. I shouted out Mr. Chow. We shouted out the intro. Let me shout out two more. I would like to shout out Goddard song. I like that song a lot.
Yep.
Um, the tempo of it, the softness of the beat, Uzi's melody that makes it a really nice listen. And you kind of talked about it, but conceded like that track also. Again, like when the instrumentals are just simple and Uzi could just be Uzi on them, like the songs come out so much better. And that's what we had on the second half versus the first half. Playback value.
Playback value, obviously it's gonna sell to a certain level because it is Lil Uzi. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like I don't know. I don't have any guesses for numbers exactly. But in terms of just playback value, I didn't see any conversation about this at all.
Hmm.
Right? Like I don't know if you did. I didn't see any
Oh,
social
I saw a
media
conversation.
conversation. Right.
It was
But
bad.
yeah, so I mean like I didn't see anything. So like in terms of subjective playback value, I don't think there's a song here that's gonna really latch on. It doesn't feel like it. So
Hmm.
I'm gonna say like I don't know, a week or two. It's not
Hmm.
like this doesn't feel to me like it has much staying power in a on a grander scale. Objectively, there's definitely songs I'm pulling from this like that I'm gonna keep. Like Chill Bay goes crazy to me.
Yeah.
It's like just this very like simply packaged pop song that Lil Uzi just like skates. Normally you say skates on, but to me it's just he skates like straight through it. Like he's just like in and out and it's like perfect. So for me, I'll give this like I'll keep coming back to this I think for the next month or so to
Hmm.
see, if anything changes for me because like I'd like it to. But yeah, so like I don't know, generously a month, but if I only listen to it for another week, it wouldn't be surprising.
Yeah. The memes that have come out because of this album are all hilarious to me. And that's mainly been the crux of the conversation I've seen. So people are definitely listening to this album and definitely reacting to this album. I expect it to do at least, I mean, it's Lil Uzi. Like I expect it to do at least 100,000. I wouldn't be
Yeah.
surprised if it does 200,000. Tyler's getting ready to do like basically 300,000 in 4 days, which is super impressive. Um, so I'm curious to see if the existence of Tyler's album kind of hurts this album, especially when Tyler's album is better. Um, but objectively, I think that this probably lasts for a week. There isn't really much of a story on the album. That's the other thing too. Like on the other albums that I mentioned, like the peak, there's usually a story throughout the album, and there's just no story here. So there's nothing really for fans to relate to as much. So
Yeah.
objectively, I'll give it a week. Subjectively, in terms of the full album, there is no playback value here for me at all. They are songs that I like. We talked about the songs that I like, that we like. We both like them. But in terms of like going back to listen to Meteor Man or whatever, that's just not happening.
Oh shit, did I mix up subjective and objective?
You did.
God damn. I'm so sorry.
uh, Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I send these to you every time we record, right? And I just said Lil Uzi had us in the first half. I'm not gonna lie, because he did. It like I wasn't enjoying what was happening. Second half, there was a recovery, and it's like, and what I said was like, this is the reason. There's certain songs in here are the reason that people have like loved Lil Uzi's music for a decade, right?
Mhm.
It sounds crazy to say that it's been a decade of Lil Uzi, but it has. Um, and so that's my final thought. It's like the first half, I don't like it at all. I think there was a valiant effort to save the album in the back half, but it like I said, it feels like when your team's like down big at halftime and then they like make a push to win and then they come up like just short, right? And it's like you're like, damn, like yeah, it's still there, but still you don't get the dub for that.
Chris Paul hits the big three to cut the lead down to 40.
No, I wasn't that aggressive. I'm not gonna put that on Lil Uzi.
Top three tracks.
Top three tracks, number one easily, as I'm sure you know, is Chill Bay.
Mhm.
Number two, Conceited. Number three, Lift 'em Up.
Okay. My final thought is Eternal Take Two ultimately doesn't live up to the quality of its predecessor, while seemingly confirming what Uzi fans fear most. Uzi is past his prime. Top three tracks: number three, Goddard Song; number two, Chill Bay; and number one, Conceited. Thank you for tuning in to episode 522 of the Cat Podcast. Don't forget to leave your opinion of Eternal Take Two by Lil Uzi Vert in the comments below. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends. Follow Old Milk on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Old Milk Media. Check out oldmilk.co for more information. That's Taylor McLeod. I'm Nate Sperlin, and we'll be back when hip hop tells us to be. Thank you for watching. We are out.
Whoa!